Wizard101 Test Realm just banned a good few TC from PvP, and a lot of people are kind of angry about it. And you know what? I kind of see the outrage, because these are spells that a lot of schools use pretty regularly. Which spells are banned from PvP, Sauce? What are you talking about? So the ones that are banned now in PvP and Test Realm are Dr. Von's Monster, which I would argue is extremely used by Death, Celestial Calendar, which is probably a staple of mid PvP, and Frostfang, which is probably one of the only usable 10 pip spells that actually does something helpful for ice as a TC. Now, the last time, like, they actually did this, it seemed to only affect Storm the most. They PvP banned Storm Owl TCs, Leviathan TCs, and Triton TCs. And to me, I feel like when they did that to Storm, it severely affected their ability to, like, literally make a deck, and it also severely limited their damage output. Nowadays, a Storm PvP side deck somewhat looks like this. There are no hits that you can put as a Storm, because literally all of them, the higher level that you go, they're all banned from PvP. Now, I wanted to make this video speculating on exactly why, although I don't think the answer is that crazy, speculating on why they would do a change like this and how it's going to start affecting the game as they go in this direction. My gut, honestly, what it's telling me here is that these changes were made not sincerely because these spells are doing that much over the intended damage per pip for a school, but because they radically affect the pacing of a game. And what I mean by that, right? Let's say that I'm going against someone like on an ice that's lower HP, maybe a lower HP school like Fire, like Storm. As long as I have like a Blade or a Sleet Storm or anything like that, I have pressure the second I get to 10 pips. It's very easy to build yourself up to 10 pips when you can shield like crazy. And with the damage reaching like 165 on the weakest damage school, it's kind of like, you know, it's a no-brainer why something that does up to 1050 damage at 10 pips the second you can just shield up to it. I can see why this is a concern. I think the same can be said even more so for Myth and Celestial, because against Myth, right, because of how high damage it is, if you're on a low health school, you have to do a couple of things very, very quickly to even have a chance of beating them. One, you have to stun block before they get to 8 pips, otherwise you run the risk of an insane Medusa combo. And two, you either need to have as many buffs as them or be ready to debuff them properly so that they don't use this spell, which is Celestial. It does like 1200 damage maybe even. And while I agree that the pressure that you get from these 10 pip spells are very, very high, and like, you know, they can completely change the course of the game if you get it early enough. While I agree with that, I think banning the TCs is creating more and more issues for the meta. I think this is fundamentally a stats problem, and this is honestly this is a problem you expect when the stats aren't balanced in this game. I think the reason Celestial hits low HP schools so hard right now is that the lowest HP schools also have low resist, and Myth can pierce through all of it. And if Myth stats were balanced, all of its pierce and all of its resist that it naturally gets from its gear would be offset by something like low damage, but it isn't. So they can just do this and do like 5k damage with just like a Blade. So now, because Myth has literally too much damage output for its school and its intended design, in my opinion, now they're getting rid of TCs like Celestial that offered one small escape from an insanely deck fail meta. And that's really the point of this video. I wouldn't really care about spells like this. In my opinion, the ones that they did actually PvP ban, they are OP. And whether the reason for how OP they are is because of, you know, how good they are damage per pip, how good stats are, whatever, they are OP. Obviously, when you get to 10 pips, you are sitting on too much pressure right now with spells like this. But the approach that they're taking, which is just ban anything that could be OP, while yes, it could be used as a short-term solution, I don't think it works in the long term because it makes deck failing much, much easier. If you're gonna keep removing spells that people use to mitigate deck fails by actually having some hits inside, you'll see a meta where every school has a very, very similar side deck. You'll just see shields, you'll just see weaknesses, you'll just see empowers, and maybe some Rochambeaus thrown in. In the case of Dr. Von specifically, you're seeing a thing where, yes, the damage is too high on the spell, yes, it does too much for you when you do it, but by removing it from the TC form, yeah, you can put it in your main deck, but the likelihood that you're going to pull it when you need it from such a bigger main deck compared to the side deck, when you introduce that, you're just removing the frequency that a death is going to drain. I think one of the biggest issues with this meta right now, especially in PvP, is the fact that you have way less wiggle room than you used to, and that's simply because damage is very, very high. And because you have such little room for error, finding any way to prevent a deck fail is the best way to survive, and now that just got a lot harder for a bunch of schools. If you're on a myth, an ice, or a death, you're just way more likely to not pull a hit when you need it, when otherwise you would just win the game. What I also don't get is that if you go to Test Realm, Sun Serpent is not PvP banned as a treasure card, and to my knowledge, neither is Avenging Fossil TCs or Balance Sabertooth TCs. I don't even think Spiny Sword treasure cards are banned, even though they, in their treasure card form, seem to do at least 100 more damage than intended DPP, just like every other spell that got banned. So what gives with these band-aid solutions? That's what I want to know, because there's less consistency than there should be if it were a serious enough issue where 10-pip spells were overrunning the meta. And to me, it seems to me like they're just banning TCs that people use a lot, which I feel like is so counterintuitive to balancing the game. You need unbiased rules, not things that just, like, you know, play whack-a-mole with every card that people somehow find a way to use so that they don't deck fail. I don't want to get the message of this video twisted. I do think right now these are unbalanced treasure cards, but I find the lack of consistency, the lack of just nerfing the treasure cards so you could still put them in side deck and not deck fail, and the lack of other fixes for deck failing. I find the lack of all of that very concerning for how PvP is supposed to work in the future. I feel like when they added all the damage to this meta and, you know, added all the pip chance to the gear that gave the most damage, I feel like they made a very conscious choice to speed up the meta, which is fine. But if you're gonna have a meta this fast, there needs to be tools to prevent deck fails, and this just makes it harder. I think they need to completely replace their approach with just banning problematic treasure cards by just literally making them very similar to their main deck versions and just make that the TC. They did that with Ifrit treasure cards in the past, and I'm sure there's many other examples that y'all can come up with in the comments where they've literally made a treasure card no PvP, and since then, because of, you know, how, you know, abusable it was, they just nerfed it. But what I really don't like is making it no PvP and keeping it like that, like they did with Storm, which I expected them to not have done for this long, and it seems like they're continuing now to do this with other schools, which is why I think it's a little bit of a red flag to me. Let me know what you guys think. Are you guys happy with Celestial, Vaughn, and Frostfang being no PvP? How do you guys feel about the remaining 10-pip TCs on other schools that aren't no PvP? And you guys think this will help or hurt the meta? I'm a little undecided, I guess. I'm just trying to see both sides of this. But let me know what you guys think in the comments. I'll look forward to reading all of y'all's comments. Drop a like if you enjoyed. Leave a sub if you're new. And as always, if somebody hasn't told you you're awesome today, they doing something wrong. So stay awesome, y'all. See y'all soon. And yeah.